There's a strange kind of strength that grows in silence. Not the silence of emptiness, but the silence that follows a genuine prayer. That stillness has weight. It holds something sacred. A presence. A feeling that you're no longer walking alone. At first, I didn't know how to interpret it. I expected an answer, but instead I received peace. I wanted direction, but was given patience. And maybe that's the point. Maybe peace is the answer. Maybe patience is the direction. We often pray expecting solutions, but sometimes the greatest gift is simply the courage to wait. The world teaches us that waiting is weakness, but faith teaches us that waiting is trust in motion. In the days that followed, I started to see differently. The same problems were there, but they no longer controlled me. It was as if something in me had shifted. I wasn't reacting, I was listening. I wasn't rushing, I was resting in the possibility that the answer was already on its way. One morning, I saw a message on a billboard. It said, "Don't quit 5 minutes before the miracle." I don't know who put it there, but in that moment, it felt like it was just for me. That's how divine guidance works. Quiet, precise, personal. Faith isn't a loud declaration. It's walking through uncertainty as if your steps are being guided, even when you can't see the guide, even when the darkness still surrounds you. That kind of faith changes the way you see everything. I remember a moment, late at night, when fear tried to visit again. I almost let it in, but something stopped me. I sat down, closed my eyes, and whispered again, "I will pray for guidance." And once more, that peace returned. Not because my situation had changed, but because I had. You don't need every answer. You just need to know who to ask. And the act of asking sincerely humbly opens doors logic can't. It reorders your heart. It silences the noise. And slowly, something beautiful begins to happen. You recognize that the guidance you were seeking was always available. You just had to be still enough to hear it, and brave enough to follow it. There comes a moment in life when the noise becomes unbearable. The pressure, the rush, the demands, they all form a wall too high to climb and too thick to break. You stare at your own reflection and wonder where the path disappeared. But it's still there, buried beneath the silence you've been avoiding. That silence? It's not empty. It's the invitation. You see, not every answer needs to scream. Some whisper, some wait, and some only emerge when we lower our guard and say the words we've forgotten how to mean. I need help. Didn't always believe in asking. I thought strength meant figuring it out alone. But the truth is, real strength begins the moment you're willing to pray. Not because you're weak, but because you know there's a wisdom greater than yours. I remember the weight of uncertainty, the kind that tightens your chest and steals your sleep. I paced floors, hoping logic would solve what only the spirit could soothe. And in that stillness, I finally stopped fighting. I closed my eyes, not in fear, but in surrender. And I whispered, "Guide me, Dot." It didn't come as a flash of light or a voice from the clouds. It came as a quiet stirring, a peace that didn't make sense, a thought I hadn't thought before, a gentle pull away from panic and toward clarity. What if the doubt you feel isn't failure, but a seed of something sacred? What if not knowing is the beginning of truly trusting? The prayer wasn't an escape, it was a doorway. Have you ever felt the world closing in on you when every option looks like a dead end? That's often where the invitation hides. When one door slams, we cry out for answers, not realizing that what just ended was never meant to last. And sometimes the only way forward is to look up. I started noticing small things. A message in a song, a line in a book, a stranger's kind word, none of it loud, but all of it timely. Like puzzle pieces gently falling into place. Coincidence? Maybe. But when you pray for guidance, you begin to see that nothing is random. Sometimes, prayer isn't about getting what you want. It's about receiving what you need. And what I needed was clarity, not the whole map, just the next step. That was enough. It had to be. What about you? Have you ever found guidance in a place you didn't expect? I want to hear from you. Share your experience in the comments. You never know who needs to read it. And thank you. Truly, thank you for still being here, for listening, for reflecting. We're just getting started, and what comes next might be exactly what your soul's been waiting for. Most people think prayer is about changing the world around them, but true prayer changes the world within. The more I prayed, the less I demanded, and the more I discovered. My questions didn't disappear, they evolved. I stopped asking why, and started asking how. How can I grow from this? How can I serve through this? When I let go of control, I noticed something unexpected. Peace became more frequent. Not because life got easier, but because I stopped trying to carry it all alone. The weight of the world felt lighter when I remembered I was never meant to lift it by myself. There were days I heard nothing. No signs, no peace, just silence. And I used to believe that meant I wasn't being heard. But I've learned that silence doesn't mean absence. Sometimes, silence is the sacred pause before a breakthrough. It's the space where faith grows. Its roots. In that silence, I started to understand that not all answers come in words. Some come in moments, in small mercies, in a closed door that kept me from disaster, in a delay that saved me from regret. Guidance doesn't always announce itself. Sometimes it just protects you without asking for thanks. I began to notice people showing up at the right time, conversations that healed, smiles that comforted, advice that arrived without me asking. I used to call these things coincidence. But when you walk with faith, coincidence starts to look a lot like divine timing. The more I listened, the clearer the message became. Prayer is not a performance. It's a relationship. It's not a speech. It's surrender. You don't need the right words. You just need the right heart. A heart open enough to say, "Lead me," and He does. Not always in the way you expect, but always in the way you need. I saw how some of the biggest no's in my life were actually sacred redirections. I didn't lose those opportunities. I was being guided away from them, towards something better. Sometimes guidance doesn't feel like a blessing. It feels like confusion, like a closed window in a burning room. But later, you realize that window kept you from jumping into something that would have hurt you even more. You'll find, as I did, that the more you trust, the more trust becomes natural. Like breathing, you stop panicking over the unknown because you know who walks beside you. The path may twist, but the presence never leaves. And when you look back, really look, you start to see it clearly. Every step, every pause, every delay, it all makes sense. Not in the moment, but in the memory. The plan was there all along. There was a moment when everything I once feared had come to pass. Plans fell apart, people left, certainties vanished, and I stood in the middle of it all, unsure whether to rebuild or retreat. But then, almost without thinking, I whispered again, "I will pray for guidance." The act of praying didn't solve everything overnight, but it did something deeper. It quieted the storm within me. And once the inner storm calmed, I could see the horizon again. I wasn't drowning. I was being taught to float. Sometimes the answer to prayer is not change, it's endurance. It's the strength to keep showing up, even when nothing makes sense. It's the ability to say, "I don't understand this season, but I trust there's a reason." Faith, I've learned, is less about certainty and more about persistence. It's praying again, even when yesterday felt empty. It's walking again, even when the road ahead is dim. That kind of faith doesn't break. It bends. And in bending, it becomes unshakable dot. Then came the day when everything changed. Not because the world got easier, but because I finally understood. The guidance I had been asking for wasn't meant to point me to a destination. It was meant to transform who I was along the way. Every prayer had been preparing me. Every delay had been protecting me. Every unanswered question was shaping something stronger inside me. That's the beauty of divine guidance. It doesn't just lead you somewhere. It makes you someone. I started living differently. Less urgency, more intention. Less fear, more faith. I no longer needed to know everything. I just needed to be in alignment with the one who did dot. And then I saw at a door I never noticed before. An opportunity that had always been there, but I had been too distracted to recognize. It wasn't flashy or loud, but it was right. I stepped through it with peace in my chest and purpose in my stride. The world hadn't changed, but I had. My eyes were different. My heart was softer. My mind was clearer. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't chasing direction, I was living in it. Sometimes the guidance we seek is not out there. It's inside. It's what happens when we stop fighting and start trusting. When we stop demanding and start listening. Over time, something subtle began to happen. I no longer prayed only when I was desperate. I prayed when I was grateful. When things went right. When the sun rose and the coffee was warm. Prayer stopped being a rescue rope. It became a rhythm. That's when I realized something powerful. Guidance is not a one-time event. It's a way of life. It's waking up each day and choosing to listen before speaking, to seek wisdom before rushing into action, to pause before reacting. And in that pause, something sacred lives. That pause is where patience is born, where clarity breathes, where grace has room to grow. It's not hesitation, it's wisdom in motion. I began to see the fingerprints of guidance in the smallest places. A canceled appointment that led to a meaningful encounter. A wrong turn that brought me to the right person. Not everything made sense immediately, but slowly the pieces began to fit. I stopped needing signs. I started trusting presence. I stopped asking for shortcuts. I started valuing the long road, the road where character is built and purpose is refined. And every now and then, I would smile at my old self, the version of me that begged for answers, that rushed and worried and tried to force the outcome. That version was doing their best. But now, I had learned to breathe through the questions. I had learned that unanswered prayers are not punishments. Sometimes they're redirections. Sometimes they're protection. And sometimes they're simply delays because the heart isn't ready for what the Spirit knows is coming. Guidance, I've come to believe, is not about finding a path. It's about becoming someone who can walk any path with peace. It's about learning to trust not just the journey, but the one who walks with you. And in that trust, life changes. Not always on the outside, but deeply, unmistakably, within. You become anchored. Not by certainty, but by connection. Not by clarity, but by communion. That's the kind of transformation no circumstance can take from you. Because it wasn't given by the world. It was born in silence, strengthened in surrender, and carried by a prayer.